everybody, and welcome to the Digital Transformation Podcast. Today I have Ed O'Brien, analyst at ARC, and our topic today is rethinking proactive asset management in the age of coronavirus. Hello, Ed, and welcome. How are you?
Great, Tom. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Absolutely, and especially right now, things are kind of in a little bit of chaos right now. So excited to have you on today.
Thank you, Tom. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, I guess we'll just dive right in. And isn't being proactive in asset management already important?
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. So it is important, but there's always a balance between uptime, equipment, maximizing uptime, and in the budget. So even though the idea is to schedule, whether through preventive maintenance or through condition monitoring, but there's always kind of that balance of, do we need to do it now? And considering all the events that are happening in the world, now what is the time? And particularly with some of the assembly and production lines either shutting down or slowing down because of demand, either now or also in the future here. Now's an opportunity to really get the equipment as best condition as possible, and and asset management can be a critical success factor in this area, because once things get rolling, and if depending on the economy, it's individual region and country economies, there's some indications that there could be some long shifts and trying to do a lot of catch up particularly in the second half of the year, Q3 and Q4. So the idea of how do we make sure, what can we do without, being totally replacing everything, but what tools do we have that can help us to get ready to maximize uptime and while the equipment's down? Because let's face it, the economies have been by and large pretty strong for the last few years. There's been some countries that have experienced some headwinds more recently, even before coronavirus and COVID-19. But the idea is that, there hasn't been a whole lot of downtime to be able to do a lot of scheduled major work. And this may very well be the time. Ramifications of the spread of the virus are really being felt around the globe. Mm-hmm. And the efforts are far-reaching and can be felt in both human and economic terms. So, keeping in mind when it's safe, but if there's an opportunity to do things behind the scenes before things get cranking, it's really critical. And within particularly the economic terms, which the human terms are much more important, of course, but the economic terms are important, and the effective asset management is more important than ever, particularly as companies start to ramp up this production and assembly lines, and also just ramping up activity overall in the near to intermediate term. Mm-hmm. And during this time, maintenance organizations can better leverage various capabilities available to them. And not to say they haven't been leveraging them, but there are a lot of fires to fight on any given shift. Right. And there's a lot of equipment that has sensors and edge devices that may not be fully, not all of the capabilities of being fully taken advantage of, and this could very well be a chance to really see, how can we make sure that there's as little downtime predicted as possible.
Yeah. Well, what areas should be top of everybody's mind for today's maintenance teams? What should everybody be focusing on?
Well, anything that could essentially, going back to Operations Management 101 of critical path, anything that could affect the lines, the production, anything that could affect any transfer over to supply chain management are critical. And a lot of it starts with inspections and preventive maintenance as well. But while production output is reduced or temporarily suspended, a lot of times the critical inspections and PMs, while equipment is available, is a unique opportunity. Sometimes there might be, if you have a 24/7 operation, very little downtime is scheduled. Mm-hmm. Other times there might be, unfortunately, some downtime that occurs because of a failure. But all of these can be, this may be an opportunity to improve uptime. And this would be particularly important in situations where scheduled maintenance inspections may have been deferred, just because of a lack of access to the equipment and the issues that can occur when you have to run full tilt and then not aware of, essentially running to failure in some cases. And so, this is important as we roll forward. And the time may be right to take full advantage of advanced features, and some of the specific features that can help include not only EAM, Enterprise Asset Management, and Asset Performance Management, but these systems which may be underused more recently. And to the point of being underused, it's an issue of priorities. A lot of maintenance is corrective maintenance. Yes, there are preventive maintenance plans. Some organizations are using reliability-centered maintenance, trying to identify conditions that may be either in the outside of the upper or lower control limits, condition monitoring inputs, but you can't always just shut the line down for something. So these opportunities by using these tools, and in many ways, EAM is and partnerships and integration with APM systems. In some ways, they share similar data and integration. You may see clues of something that may occur next shift, or maybe 2 weeks from once the line starts up or gets back to full capacity. And these opportunities to really read the data are really critical, and a good opportunity, to make, in some ways, make lemonade out of lemons. I mean, it's a bad situation, but what can we do to make sure we do better? We operate more efficiently and effectively, when we get back to quote unquote normal, the new normal.
Yeah. With that being said, how can maintenance teams better identify higher priority tasks to improve the reliability and performance of their assets?
Mm-hmm. A lot of it spans around the intelligent asset management and available digital transformation tools. We've been talking about this for a number of years, but the idea of really fully taking advantage of what these tools can offer. And during this time, the maintenance organizations can better leverage these capabilities. And in addition to the APM and EAM solutions, as an example, you also have reliability-centered maintenance to help identify additional opportunities that may not be fully aware. And the idea of really fully using the automation data and sensors, and really taking advantage of what the IoT systems and industrial IoT, IIoT, are signals they're sending out, and really making use of what is data into more information. And most all organizations these days are using these tools, but whether or not there might be some more opportunity to dig more deeply, and also predictive maintenance. As I mentioned, RCM, reliability-centered maintenance. The idea of trying to predict, the idea of trying to see what trends are occurring, and this is something we've been talking about for quite a long time. But this could be even more important as we go forward, because many of these, there may be multiple shifts. There could be many operations that might be 2-shift operations, may become 3-shift operations. So the uptime is critical, and downtime can be a killer as far as productivity and availability of workers. So the idea of really taking digital transformation to heart, and not just the letter of what we're trying to do, but the spirit. How can we really, what do we need to do to try to make sure we have prolonged operations where there wouldn't necessarily be any stoppage in work as much as possible. In reality, for many of us, we've been taught that don't over maintain the old U curve, where you have you spend more as preventive maintenance is needed up to a point, and then it gets to a point where overall total costs increase by too much maintenance. There's an argument, because at least in this case, as plants are being getting back to full tilt, maybe you can go a little bit more toward over maintaining just a bit, if it means eliminating or reducing downtime. And Other tools include use of analytics, and critically analytics, predictive analytics, to better assess anomalies in the data, and also to predict premature failures. And in many ways, looking at predictive maintenance along with predictive analytics are two areas that are can help have a little bit of a glimpse to the future, and the data may yield some very surprising insights. And we discussed this across the board in the past as well, but even more so now, to kind of get an idea. Okay, how can we optimize uptime? And predictive analytics could be one of these ways to kind of take it to the next level. A lot of industrial organizations are using their analytics tools and going beyond just reporting and BI, business intelligence, but also starting to, if not dabble, but work closely with their quant teams for predictive analytics. And we've written about this in the past, and we'll continue in the future, the idea of the democratization of analytics. So a lot of the capabilities that people are from the shop floor, and some of these are power users, not necessarily from the quant staff, are beginning to use these tools, and also using visual analytics to get a sense for graphically where might there be a problem, where is something that's still within condition, still within the boundaries of what's acceptable, but it's trending offward. And it could be an issue of lubricants, it could be an issue of vibration, heat. All of these can help identify something that may not be failing now, but could be failing in 50 hours or 100 hours or 200 hours.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, are there any other areas of opportunity to consider during these difficult times?
Absolutely. Not only the technology and predictive analytics to the degree of what the data is telling in order to go more deeply, but there's also the issue of it's not only about tech, although tech is critical to help identify potential issues, but it's both touch and tech. In many ways, trying to mine the data in the minds of the subject matter experts on the shop floor, those who know, this is, to have them kind of put on their thinking hats, which they would do every day anyways. But you do test runs on the lines. You've got the IoT data as well. You got the edge computing inputs coming in, but also sometimes just listening or looking at vibration meters or temperature readings and just getting a sense something doesn't seem right. Someone can say, I've been in this plant for 25 years. And I've been wondering about this motor over here. It works, but it's and then you look at the edge data, and you say, yeah, it's got a little bit of a it's got an anomaly here or there. So a lot of it is what's in the heads of the subject matter experts as well. The technology is important, but it needs to be melded with the subject matter experts, and all of that together can help. Help make the crystal ball more clear. And many of today's technicians are already using this, particularly the younger ones, but also some of the power users, and particularly in the analytics area, to get a sense for, looking at trends, and identifying issues that happened in the past that maybe weren't obvious. In many of our conversations over the past few years, and some examples of some very highly qualified people and managers and directors who have learned from their people that sometimes the data is showing a potential issue, you just don't know it. So if you do a good job of forensic data mining and working with the quant staffs when available, many plants won't have that, but a lot of times as the data now is available through some of the more easy to use systems. Not saying they'll all be true AI and give all the information way ahead of time, but the idea of within analytics, and in some cases a lot of plants are using at least some version of machine learning and looking at different models of if these conditions occur, then it's likely that this pump is going to cavitate and fail. If other conditions occur, there's an anomaly that might happen down the road. I mean, there's a lot of common sense that can be used, in looking at, from data management and data analysis that can really help moving forward.
Right. So Ed, are there any other areas that people should be focusing on right now?
Yeah, Tom, that's a very good point, because we've been speaking primarily about work management and labor management and troubleshooting and assessing inputs that come from edge devices, IoT devices, preventive maintenance or predictive maintenance. But another area is particularly in this case, something a lot of companies have been doing, I'm sure, but the idea of trying to reduce the number of vendors, as we've been trying to do for the last 20 years or more, trying to get the number of vendors you work with, could actually be a problem in this, going forward for the new normal for the foreseeable future.
Right.
It's important of developing or updating plans for sourcing spare parts and replacement equipment. It's kind of counter to how we've all been taught for the last couple of decades. We don't need 50 vendors, we only need 3 vendors, and we get better pricing from scale. But the reality is the supply chain execution becomes a challenge, very much a challenge with all this, whether or not there's closures in the plants, whether or not they can't get the rolling stock in position. So even though it's much emphasis has been on discussing fewer vendors, this may be the time to think about who your backup vendors ought to be.
Right.
And I'm not saying you jettison all the ideas of working with single vendors, but it's the idea of trying to make sure that they can fill, or how they would fill in difficult times.
Right.
And trying to understand how prepared key suppliers and other stakeholders are for unexpected events and unexpected situations. Because as we go through this, we'll probably have peaks and valleys. We might have things may be fine for a while, and then there may be other issues of having to have supply chain disruptions. The more knowledge you can gain early on, and particularly in the phases of the outbreak, but also what might happen down the road in different other countries is important. The better prepared you can be, and when circumstances shift. It's also important to identify and research the capabilities of these alternate suppliers. So, do they have the right quality? Are they using the parts that you need, the specs that you need? It's important to do that. Now, not all of it can be done overnight, but this is something to keep in mind, to have contingency plans. And many of the larger plants would have this, but it's important for all plants to keep this in mind. And in these uncertain times about whether or how much to increase safety stock is something else to keep in mind. So the idea we've always thought about, you have lead time of critical spares, whether they're individual parts or rotable spares or other equipment. You may need more safety stock, because if you do have an interruption in the supply chain, you don't want the whole line to go down because of something. These are some areas we haven't had to think about very much, because our ERP systems, our EAM systems, the APM systems have been providing very good input. And usually you can have just-in-time inventory, not only for finished goods but also for parts. Right. That's a little bit dicey in these cases, so you may have to rethink for a period of time, just to make sure that you have enough safety stock and your lead times can accommodate alternate parts and equipment deliveries at this point in time. And developing a supply chain resilience is important at all times, but really critical at these times to keep those in mind.
Yeah, I saw the United States today rose to number 1 for confirmed cases of coronavirus. So it looks like this thing is just going to keep on increasing. True. So, right now, this is a real mirror being put up to everybody, and it's allowing for some real deep introspection.
No, that's so true. And, the idea of being, of having the work management and parts management and supply chain finely tuned. We've done such a good job in the global from a global trade. Yeah. But that's assuming uninterrupted supply chain performance, and I don't think we can necessarily bet on that all the time. So we need to kind of back off just a little bit, just to make sure, for the want of a relatively modest cost of a part, to have a whole line down. That's not
Right.
what everybody wants.
It'd be a good time to update those contingency plans for sure, and try to be more proactive. Any closing thoughts that you had in particular, Ed?
Sure, Tom. In many ways, this is unprecedented uncertainty, or almost unprecedented. At least going back 15 years, but to the scope, it's very much unprecedented. And the uncertainty and of business disruption, the availability of workers, availability of parts are all critical. And asset management, effective asset management, can be a way to be proactive and to get an opportunity to get to get things right as soon as possible. And this includes taking advantage of downtime, however unwelcome, to ensure that the equipment is in the best condition possible when
making lemonade.
Production. Exactly. It's also a good time to review and update contingency plans, as you mentioned, Tom, for backup parts, source, even outsourced services if direct workers aren't available. So just all things are on the table to ensure that the operations run as smoothly and as reliably as possible. And we'll get through this by using our head and relying on each other but not only within the companies, but also with partners and vendors to do the best they can.
For sure. I think that's important now more than ever. And thank you, Ed, and I appreciate you coming on. And anybody who's interested in getting more information, you can visit us at arcweb.com or on our streaming platforms, Digital Transformation Podcast, on iTunes, on Spotify, and a whole bunch of other streaming platforms, including YouTube. Or you check out our Smart Cities podcast too as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Sure, Tom. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
You too.